I'm Lucy.
And I'm Jennifer.
You're listening to Everything I Know About.
Each week, we share everything we know about a new topic, equipped with some internet research and a little too much exposure to pop culture.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So we are recording this a week before Chinese New Year, which is February 10th. And I wanted to do this episode to share a bit about my cultural background, but also to have the opportunity to dive into the history of the Chinese Zodiac, which is something that I grew up with, but honestly don't know that much about. And in particular, to compare it against the Western Zodiac. So I'm Chinese American. I grew up going to Chinese school, and I learned about my culture a lot through the lessons taught in that school. Chinese New Year is a thing that I grew up celebrating, but I haven't really done anything special around the holiday since I left for college. And now that we're approaching yet another Lunar New Year, it's also a very auspicious year because 2024 is the year of the dragon. And the dragon is the luckiest zodiac
Is it?
symbol in Chinese culture. Yes.
I actually just learned this, that you went to Chinese school. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, so what are you picturing when I say that? Do you even know what Chinese school is?
I mean, honestly, I'm picturing kind of like Bible study, but for Chinese culture. Like you go on like a Sunday or something. Because I think, well, I had one of my best friends growing up was Chinese. And so she would go to this. I think I went with her one time.
You went?
Like one
a
time.
show and tell white person?
Yes. Like literally. Well, we were like attached at the hip. It's a very vague memory. I'm like, just when you said that, it kind of like unlocked it. I was like, shit, I think I've been there before. But like, would you just go like once a week, or did you go to like an actual like elementary school that was bilingual?
No. I went to normal like American public school. But yeah, no, it was Saturday for us. Every Saturday it was like 2 hours. You'd go in the morning. Our Chinese school was at a community college, and all of these Chinese people basically just took it over on Saturdays. Inside each of the college classrooms, you'd have like a different grade. It starts in kindergarten, it goes all the way till 12th grade. So you do it until you graduate, basically.
Oh my God. Did you do it up through 12th grade?
Yeah, which is probably surprising too, because I don't actually speak Mandarin that well. But yeah, no, I did.
So did they teach you culture and language, or like what was the lesson plan?
So you had like a textbook for every grade you were in, and essentially like the content of the textbook would be a lot of like Chinese cultural heritage, Chinese history, and then you would be told many of the same stories year after year. It's just that the language describing the story would get more and more sophisticated as you learned more and more characters. How do you speak Mandarin? How do you write Mandarin? Like those are the goals. But like the content that we're reading and writing is about Chinese culture, Chinese history.
Fascinating. Okay, so it's like specifically geared towards children of immigrants?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it would be like now. It's just like much more popular to learn Chinese now, I think, even if you don't have that cultural background. But definitely growing up, it was only kids of Chinese immigrants.
Well, on that note, Chinese New Year is something that I've always been really interested by. I actually learned a lot about it at school, in elementary school.
Was there like a lot of Asians in your community?
No, but I feel like I weirdly went to really progressive schools. Like they were public schools. I've told you I've moved around a lot, but when I was living in Kansas, when I was in preschool, I learned Swahili instead of Spanish, which was...
What?
But I went to Montessori school.
Swahili?
Yeah,
okay.
I went to Montessori school. So we would have like a very big unit on Chinese New Year. I was always very jealous of like the cute red envelope tradition. And like I always thought the like moon cakes looked really good. And I've always wanted to try one. But that's about like the extent of it.
Well, just to clarify, mooncakes is not Lunar New Year.
Fuck
That's a different
me.
holiday. It's a different holiday.
White girl fucks up Chinese New Year. Is there like a traditional food that's eaten on the Chinese New Year?
Yeah. So like a whole fish because it symbolizes like abundance. In Chinese culture, the language, because a lot of words sound like other words, like there's accents in Mandarin, right? So like even just changing a word slightly could make it mean a different thing, or even sometimes words that sound exactly the same can mean like 20, 30 even like different things, because it really depends what the character is written like.
Yeah.
So the word for fish sounds like the word for surplus. So it's considered lucky to eat. And like this dish called niangao, it's a rice cake. Literally means year cake. But it sounds like niangao, which means like year, like gao is cake, but it's also high. So it sounds like prosperity, like year high. So people also eat that during the New Year.
Cool. So it's like basically just a bunch of word plays.
Yeah, a ton of wordplay. And then also symbolism, right? Like you eat noodles for longevity.
This I knew. Wait, this one I knew. It's like these super fucking long noodles, right?
For long life, yeah.
That's so cool.
The way that you celebrate Chinese New Year, I mean, it's actually like pretty complicated because it's a full 15 days.
What?
So I think there's a misconception that it's just one day similar to when we literally celebrate like New Year's Eve to New Year's and it's
Yeah.
just like that night. But no,
No, I
it's
love a festival season. It's great.
yeah. So this is like the major holiday in China. Everybody gets, I think, 7 or 8 days off and everybody travels home to their hometown.
Really?
It's very much like a family holiday. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I've actually always really wanted to go to China during this time, but it's February often, right? It's usually like, it's based on the lunar calendar. So it shifts slightly every year, but it's usually like end of Jan or Feb. And I was always in school at the time.
Also, like, I'm surprised that we don't know this in the West because you would think just like the amount of business and imports and like infrastructure that happens in China, we would know that like, oh, the world is kind of shutting down for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
But
I
we
mean,
don't
it's
know
possible
that.
that people who do trade with China as a job do know that, and you don't.
Well,
'cause
as
you
an
don't.
end consumer, like think about when things were shut down due to COVID, we knew about that.
Yeah, but I think this is like people plan for it because
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
it happens every year.
Fair enough. But you would just think that we would know. Like I know, for instance, that in Europe things shut down in August because like even if you buy a product in Europe and like you try to contact somebody, they're gonna be like, we're out for the month.
On vacation.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
fascinating.
Because everybody goes home. They have this like big Lunar New Year's Eve reunion dinner. And I even heard stories about this growing up about how like my parents grew up during the Communist Revolution. They were really, really poor and you couldn't eat a ton of food. Like mostly they were eating like porridge. And so everything would be saved for Chinese New Year. Other ways to celebrate like fireworks, lion dances. Red, as you said, is like a really important color. Red in Chinese culture is a lucky color, and around Chinese New Year, people like make paper lanterns that are red. They do paper cutouts. They paste it all over their windows and their door,
Cute.
just like a wreath, right? In Christian
Love this.
culture, it's a time for you to like honor your ancestors, and like there's the red envelopes. So I remember getting these as a kid. It was always like so exciting. There's like a etiquette, right? Parents give kids red envelopes.
Mhm.
And then when you start to hand them out, it's like a transition to adulthood
Oh.
when now you're the person giving. Yeah.
Sweet.
And as a kid, to get your red envelope, you need to go up to an adult, kneel down and like show them respect, wish them a happy new year, and then receive the envelope with 2 hands.
This is such a great learning opportunity because I know so little.
I mean, honestly, even though I did grow up Chinese American, I did not know that much about the history of Chinese New Year either. Growing up, like I think everybody's gone to a Chinese restaurant and like the paper placemat is the zodiac, and like you're at the buffet and you're like, okay, like which one am I, and like who my enemies with is like the one directly across from me in the zodiac.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I mean, because my brother is 6 years younger than me, so it's 12 animals, right? So whoever is a 6-year difference from you, which is right across from you in the zodiac, you're not compatible with them. So my mom would always be like, this is why you guys fight, because like I'm 93, I'm a rooster, and he's a rabbit, and they don't get along.
Oh, that's right. I remember being a kid and feeling so bad for the 93 kids and being like, oh my God, Rooster sucks. I was born in 1994, which was the year of the dog. And I was like very excited as a child that it was dogs. That was my favorite animal. And like,
Yeah,
that's like,
that's cute.
That's the extent of my like childlike knowledge of the Chinese zodiac.
Yeah, as a
Dog
kid.
is better.
So the like myth and the story that I always heard growing up was that basically this zodiac originated because the Jade Emperor declared that he wanted like a way to differentiate time and like keep track of the years. There would be this great race. And so the order of the animals are in the zodiac are the order that the animals finished in this race. They basically had to cross a river. And like I literally have memories of in Chinese school, this being when I was younger, illustrated and like told, you know, like a kid's book style.
Can you like say from memory what the order is that they won?
Okay. I mean, so I know rat is first because
What?
which is surprising, yeah.
Over
but
the
like
dragon?
well, here's the story, right? Because they had to explain this somehow, since it doesn't make intuitive sense. So the rat, which is small but cunning, made a deal with the ox, which, you know, ox, big, strong, can just like walk through the water, that the rat was going to hitch a ride with the ox, and the ox, being a kind and gentle soul, agreed to it. So the rat and the ox cross first, but the rat, being mischievous, jumps off the ox's back and like runs across the finish line. So the rat is first, then the ox, then the tiger, which is self-explanatory, then the rabbit. So, you know, rabbits can't swim, but I guess the rabbit hopped across the river on these rocks and made it. Fifth is the dragon, but they say that, you know, obviously the dragon is a mythical creature, so he should have been able to finish first, but He was so helpful. He helped all the other animals.
Oh, he was like the wise dragon. Like,
He like blew some air to help the rabbit hop a little further or whatever. So the dragon is fifth. And then there's another story here. So next is the horse and the snake. The horse was crossing the river. All of a sudden, the snake comes out of the brush and scares him. Like horses are afraid of snakes. And the horse rears up and the snake gets across the finish line first. Then you've got the group of three, which is the monkey, the rooster, and the sheep, who are rafting across the river together. And they're like helping each other cross. And so they're a team. And then the last two, you've got the dog. Even though the dog can swim, he stopped to play in the river because the water was so nice. And then the last one, the pig. I feel like this one makes sense. The pig was last because he snacked too much.
okay, so these characters are like moralized.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because it's like so convoluted. Like, I mean, obviously there's the tortoise and the hare, which I feel like
I was going to say this reeks
It's
of
really
tortoise
clear.
in the hair. Yeah.
right, but that's so much less complicated, right? Like the clear takeaway there is like be industrious, like don't burn out too quickly. This I have no idea. Like it almost feels like they just had to make something work with what they were given.
It's very cute though. The explanations are adorable.
yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So that's really honestly all I knew about it, even up until recently when I started looking into it for this episode. But I've obviously always known that like there's these 12 animals, and I don't know that much about Western astrology at all. I knew I was a Scorpio growing up, but like would love to hear what you know, because you know a lot about this. You're just like naturally into this stuff,
I am
right?
naturally
On the Western
into this
side.
stuff. Yes, I know quite a bit about the Western Zodiac, but I did do some research into like I didn't really know where it came from before, but I am interested in like the Western esoteric tradition as like a subject of both history and science. So I knew some of that background.
What a phrase. I am interested in the Western esoteric tradition. You sound so highbrow. I love
It
it.
sounds so pretentious and also like ridiculously woo-woo. Yeah, so it's a little bit parallel because there are also 12 signs of the Western Zodiac. They like correspond to different times. Actually, this is a question for you. In the Chinese zodiac, do the animals of the zodiac correspond to times of the year or just like specifically years?
So yeah, I found this to be like really interesting. So obviously we all know that they do correspond to years. I think that's like the most common knowledge.
Yeah.
So everybody in 93 is a rooster, which obviously growing up I was like, this is bullshit. Like obviously I'm not like every single person in my class.
Yeah.
But in doing research, I did find out that so in Chinese feng shui and Chinese astrology, you can actually have a full chart drawn out for you as well. And so they
Oh.
do look at your main animal, right? But then you can also look up your inner animal, which is your month. Then you have your true animal, which is your day. And then you have your secret animal, which is your hour.
Wow. Okay, so this is really parallel to your astrological chart then. I had no idea that it was that complicated.
Yeah. And I also didn't know this, but okay, so the full system of like yearly organization is a cycle that resets every 60 years. There are the 12 zodiac animals. They're called the 12 earthly branches. Yes, we have the origin myth, but actually this was also because people were able to observe that Jupiter had 12-year orbit. So that's why it's 12. I don't know how they knew that.
I was going to say, and then you could go like, why Jupiter? Like, what
I
is-
know. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I did find the parallels so fascinating though.
Yeah.
So
Well, did you look into when the Western Zodiac developed? Because I wonder which came first, too.
well, this is fascinating. I did look into this. So the Western Zodiac comes from Babylon and Sumer back in like 5000 BC. But then it's like also came in parallel with the Greeks. So it's very Hellenic in nature too. But they were all in contact with each other. And we know this. So actually what's strange is they were not in contact with the Chinese. However, they were developing the same system at the same time. And so the Chinese zodiac and the Western zodiac, there's so many parallels that we think that there's probably a singular tradition from like way back when, before everyone was splintered off into the different continents. But there's no like true verification for this. But I thought that was super interesting. It's like, okay, so maybe there is a reason that it's like all of these same numbers, like you have the same symbology coming up again and again. This is why I'm interested in the esoteric shit, because I'm like, is there like a lost civilization from like 100,000 years ago that we were all a part of? Like, is this Atlantis? I can go down a whole rabbit hole about this, but yes, there is a lot of parallels.
Maybe save that for our like episode about conspiracy theories.
Okay.
So the Chinese zodiac, you've got the 12 animals, which are the 12 earthly branches. And then that's combined with these 10 heavenly stems, which are elements. So there are 5: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. And I feel like that's interesting because there are also elements in the Western Zodiac. I think it's fire, water, earth, and air.
There is a 5th, it's ether. They describe it as like the between space of like molecule.
Oh.
Like now it's considered like the between space of molecules, like where it's not air, it's like ether. Or like when you go into actual outer space, it's not oxygen. Obviously, it's not air, it's ether.
So I guess you don't have metal or wood.
The Chinese elements are more like materials.
Yeah. So basically, each one of these 5 elements is assigned a yin and a yang, which gives you 10 combinations. So then when you take your 12 animals and you match them with your 10 heavenly stems, you get 60 combinations because you can only pair yang with yang and yin with yin. That's why it's not 120. But anyway, this is already getting like so complicated.
But yeah, I had no idea that the original system was actually like a 60-year cycle. And this is like the oldest known dating system in Chinese history. Like we're talking 1300 BC.
Wow.
Has existed for as long as like written records have existed. And nearly all oracle bones have like an inscription in this format.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds so crazy complicated to me now, but I guess like back then it was like, yeah, everybody knew this. This is like literally how they thought about time. And it's fascinating to know that like yin and yang, which obviously we all know
Yeah.
like as a symbol, right, is like popular, had roots like so far back, right? This like idea of like balance being important.
That's fascinating. And I also, yeah, I guess this like harkens back to the original question of like, is this just a yearly cycle thing? And it's not. Like it has so many more implications like across time denominators. Turns out the Western Zodiac does as well. Like I thought it was just the monthly thing, but there's not. Like there's the ages of the Zodiac. Do you know about this?
No.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I've like heard grumblings about this in the community, how we're like entering the Age of Aquarius, which,
Okay.
so here's the deal on it. So astrological ages are about 2,000 years in length. And each 2,000 years is represented by a astrological zodiac sign. And from the year 0 to the year about now, actually, we've been in the age of Pisces and we're transitioning into the age of Aquarius. So obviously huge monumental shifts in energy coming into the age of Aquarius. The age of Pisces was noted by the rise of monotheistic cultures, but really it's the age of Aquarius that's going to be colored by technology. It's supposed to be advances in humanitarianism and communication and technology in this new age. So
Wait, that's crazy.
yeah.
So according to this, there's only been one age in all of human history so far, and we're just entering
Well,
a new one.
I think technically there's been like 2.5 because humans are like 70,000 years old. We have recorded history back like 8 to 10,000 years. So not that much. They have like ages for like pre-pottery eras and Neolithic ages. Very interestingly enough, the age of Taurus marked like one of the earliest ages in civilization. I think it was like the very first, but one of the very first civilizations, they were bull worshippers. And Taurus obviously is the sign of bulls. So I found that to be very interesting. Like literally the note on like what happened during this historical period was like the rise of bull worshipping cultures in the Middle East. And I was like, whoa.
Whoa. Because like this is all based on an actual picture of the stars, right? Whereas like the Chinese zodiac is not based on star constellations or anything, but the Western one is, right? So this is like the ordering is determined by planets.
Yeah, so each of the zodiacs is a constellation. It's actually like quite scientific. I mean, this is why like science and geometry and math comes out of astrology. Basically, they took 12 of the constellations, assigned them each a mythos, and that comes from like the Hellenic, like Roman Greek tradition. They each have like a symbol and a sign, again, like rooting in the mythos. And then wherever the sun is in that constellation determines the time. So that's why like this time of year, I think we're in Aquarius right now, but it's because we're in that 30 degrees of the 360-degree turn of the sun over the course of the year that hits this constellation.
Got it. This Taurus thing is like literally the positioning the planets made it so that it was definitely Taurus. And then also simultaneously humans just started worshiping bulls, even though they didn't have a concept of what a Taurus was, obviously.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
That's scary. That's weird. Oh my God.
Yeah, I honestly don't understand how the age thing works because it's not based on the positioning of the sun, obviously. Like, I think
I
it's
feel-
actually the positioning of Pluto that changes every 2,000 years. But weirdly enough, the Earth has been rotating on its axis slightly since all of these calculations were made 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. So really, if we want to be scientific about it, we have to shift back one full 30 degrees because it's tilted so much. So instead of being in Aquarius, we would actually be in Capricorn,
Got it.
shifting back. I know it's really
Wow.
interesting because it is quite scientific how it's done, but then it's not recalculated at all as the axis shifts. But yeah, that's why we see such scientific mathematical accuracy with the stars and the building of the pyramids. It's these cultures
Yeah.
that were very into astrology and therefore into geometry and math.
That blows my mind. When I look at this night sky, I'm like, yeah, if somebody were to point out the Little Dipper to me, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it. But if there was no guideline and I just looked at the sky, how would I realize that, oh, the North Star never moves? It blows my mind that people without telescopes and just staring at the sky were realizing all of this.
I know. So in the West, the astrological tradition obviously has such a huge impact with horoscopes. People know what their sun sign is. In the Chinese tradition, is the zodiac the same thing where oh, I'm a yin water dog and it impacts your life in some way, or people share it?
I mean, obviously everybody knows their birth year. So at that level, 100% everybody knows. But I mean, I didn't even know there was all of this complexity until I did the research. I don't think most people are aware that there's a yin and a yang, or that there's also an element associated with their Chinese zodiac animal. I mean, there's definitely this superstition that still exists today around lucky years and unlucky years. So the funniest correlation I found was, okay, so Year of the Dragon in 2024, definitely people want to have babies in the Year of the Dragon. And actually, 12 years ago, in 2012, there was a 5% increase in the birth rate in China because it was the Year of the Dragon. So
God.
people are planning, they're planning their birth cycles around these phenomena. They're planning around
Wow.
an auspicious year versus a negative year. Even Jack Ma. Do you know who Jack Ma is? He's
Yeah.
the CEO of
Alibaba. He's a dragon baby. Yeah, so dragon babies are supposed to be very successful and likely to make a lot of money and have all these good things, which is why people want to have babies in that year. But it's fascinating because, in China, there's a lot of competition, right? There's so many people, and even the way the college entrance exam works is it's just based on a test score that you take against your peers from that year. So actually being a dragon baby is disadvantageous because it's so much more competitive because there's just so many more people.
I thought you were going to say because everyone's so much smarter.
No, well,
I mean, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because if you believe, and obviously I'm not saying all Chinese people believe this, but as a culture, there's definitely superstitions, just like there are in the West, how we don't have 13 floors in a lot of buildings. I wouldn't say Westerners or Americans are so
superstitious, but clearly there are real things that we see in our daily
Well,
society,
even if
right?
they are superstitious, I think that there's this really dumb stigma attached to superstition. It has been a part of humanity since the dawn of time, literally. It doesn't make somebody or a culture less intelligent or rational because there's lore and tradition and superstition with it. I think that's what makes a culture a culture. So to say that oh, the Chinese quote unquote buy into the Year of the Dragon being special, it doesn't make it irrational. It's just that's literally the culture. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you ask most Chinese people, they'd be yeah, we don't actually believe this. But it is funny when you step back and you kind of are okay, but enough people are clearly influenced by this where you're kind of seeing it in the data a bit.
Yes.
Right. And I'm sure there's other factors, but still literally 2012 bumps in both those years
Imagine
of around
the
5%.
pressure being a woman. Would you just be pounding the prenatal vitamins at the end of 2023 because you're I need to get impregnated in the next 3 months if I'm gonna pop out this baby in 24?
Well, yeah, but then also if you just happen to be on the edge, people schedule C-sections so that they'll have their baby 1 week ahead of time if that current year is more auspicious than the following year.
Wow.
They've done research on this. Actually, there was a study I found that looked at if there was adverse health outcomes for these children.
I was gonna
who maybe were getting born a week earlier, and there weren't. I mean, this is not people are not risking the life of their child.
I was gonna say, are we inducing preemies for it to be born in the Year of the Dragon? Okay, if it's just a week, that shows.
Yeah, this is
7 months here.
It's oh, if I had a choice, why would I, not pick to have?
I mean, I would.
Everything go for my child, right?
I would pick the Year of the Dragon for my child if it was the matter of a week. Yeah, duh.
Yeah, and so because there's obviously years that are luckier, I would say the other piece that this is used for is when it comes to matchmaking and who you're compatible with. So in general, I mean, as I said it earlier, you're not compatible with someone 6 years older or younger than you. So it tends to be like 4 years where that's the good match according to this belief.
Oh, okay. I like that. That's a good age
And
gap.
so, yeah.
When you look at your own chart, it will tell you like who you're compatible with and who you're not. And so for me, Rooster, my best match is an ox and a snake. My mom is actually a snake. And growing up, it would be like, oh, me and my brother don't get along because the rooster and rabbit thing. But my mom and I got along great.
Were you a mama's girl?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely closer to my mom than my dad. But maybe that's true of all Asian dads. Because Asian dads have a reputation for being, like pretty stoic and not very emotive, which I think is tough on an American child.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's 100% the stereotype.
Validated in your case?
Validated in my
Okay.
experience, and I think many people's. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe it's just like actual data at this point. But yeah. And then for a dog, actually, like we're not supposed to get along, you and me.
Oh.
We're not like the worst enemies, but it's not the best either.
You know what? That's okay. It's all bullshit. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, clearly doesn't apply to us. But like, is that how you got into the Western Zodiac initially? Because like, I feel like that's the sexiest part is like figuring out what your sign is. And like when you start to have crushes on boys, right? Like figuring what they are. And
Yeah, I've always been interested in it, but honestly, I lost a lot of interest for many years up until like quite recently, honestly, because I was like, this is such BS. Not everyone born in the same month can have these traits. And then like when I learned more about it and just realized that's like a bastardization of horoscoping, basically, and astrology, and I realized how complicated it is, I was like, oh, I get it now. Like I get why this is interesting. And the people who are in it and who aren't bastardizing it by saying like, oh, you're an Aries, you like definitely have these traits. They look at it as like the planets and the stars referencing periods and cycles. And so rather than saying Mars is directly influencing my behavior, it's saying, well, we're noticing a pattern throughout thousands of years in human history that when Mars is in this position, things tend to happen this way. And we don't know why that connection's happening. We're not saying Mars is directly influencing it. Like it could just be cycles of history, cycles of human behavior. Like we do see cycles of history. People like study that stuff outside of astrology. So it's basically just a way of demarcating time to study patterns, which I think that is more interesting to me than saying that you're like an Aquarius, therefore you have these traits.
yeah.
Interestingly enough, Ruben, my fiance, his father is incredibly scientific. He is like an academic researcher. He's a neuroscientist and he's very into astrology. Academically so. And he's like an atheist too. Like he is not spiritual, not woo-woo, but like that's his one like little woo-woo thing. And he did Ruben and I's charts before he ever met me, before he knew my name. Ruben's not into this at all, but he was like, okay, when I meet a girl that I think is special, like I'm going to ask you to do our charts. And I'm not going to tell you anything about her beforehand. So he didn't. And he just wanted to like test it out and see how accurate it was. And his dad was like, you two are a perfect match. Like if you weren't romantic, you would be incredible business partners. Like this is soulmate shit. And so it was great. Apparently my chart was like entrepreneurial and creative and like emotional and shit. And I was like, okay, this all like really checks out. And then you look at my chart and like the lines are all over the place. And Ruben's chart is like one line, like all of the lines are just like one very intense direction. And he's like a very intense person. And his chart basically said that he was going to be really into nightlife. And so his parents, when he was...
Wow, that's so specific.
Specific. And he was into like poker as a kid. And so his parents were like worried that he was going to get into like the grimy side of gambling. Yeah. And that was like, oh God, it's in his chart. Like that's going to happen. It turns out he's just a DJ, but like, very fascinating stuff. So that part I think is interesting when you get like really, really in the weeds with it and very like looking at all of your planets and like books that are like 1,000-page tomes on how to analyze this stuff. And then you get a very specific answer. And I think that's cool.
So at that level, if you like truly understand it and you can like draw someone's chart based on like all of the 100 variables out there, then it's truly unique, right? Like no one has your exact same chart unless they were born the exact same minute.
Yes, it's by the minute. And then also by your geographical location. And that's why a lot of them ask like what time zone or even city you were born in, because that matters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You've known your chart, I guess, for a long time, but I just did it for this episode. And I didn't even, I like literally pulled out my birth certificate to figure out what time I was born. But I'm curious, like, what your chart is. And I also don't really feel like I understand mine. But since you're an expert, maybe you can help me.
I only know, like, my signs, which is bad. So I'm not like good at reading other people's signs because honestly, it's so much information. Like I really admire people who understand.
Yeah.
But mine is I'm a Virgo sun. So to back up, like you have 3 major signs, which is your sun, moon, and rising. Your sun is, I believe, supposed to be your place in the world, not how you outwardly present, but like your purpose in life. Your moon is your emotional state. It's how you are on the inside. And then your rising is how you present, like how other people perceive you. So my like purpose in life, greater being, whatever, is my sun, which is Virgo. Virgos are very type A, structure oriented. My rising, so how people perceive me, is Scorpio. They can be scary, intimidating, like you have very strong opinions about them one way or the other. And then my inner life is Aries, which is like emotional, woo-woo, creative, volatile. So I feel like it kind of like checks out for me. I'm like, okay, I see all of this. But when I thought I was like just a Virgo and that was supposed to be my personality, I was like, nah, I don't buy into this. But I'm curious, what are yours? Tell me what you've learned.
Okay, so I always knew I was a Scorpio. And like was like, okay, this could be right. You know, Scorpio's kind of like a polarizing person.
You strike
But,
me
like,
as so Virgo.
Really? I mean, yeah, the type A thing, but no, Virgo's not in my chart at all. So my sun is Scorpio. My rising is Gemini.
Ooh, she's
Right,
complex.
I mean, I don't know. I literally was like, I read the thing, so you can give me your take. But what it said when I looked online was, okay, the ascendant Gemini is known as someone who wears a mask when meeting new people. Because I guess the twins, so they got like 2 faces. You can be like pretty hard to read, and you tend to be friendly, flexible, but also indecisive, unsure, high-strung, temperamental, nervous or anxious, talkative, and always ready for something different. I don't know. Literally, I felt like this description was just like a salad bowl. Like, I don't even know. I feel like because it's the twins, maybe they were just like, let's just put a bunch of words that oppose each other.
No, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. But this is your rising, right?
My rising. So that's
Okay, so this
what I
makes,
appear as, right?
this makes sense though, because in our very first episode, were you not talking about how you don't know how to like play the game and like put on the mask when you feel like you need to meet people at first? Yeah, like you literally use the word mask.
That's
So
true.
like here we are.
But I thought this was like, but Geminis, they know how to do it, right? Or no? Because I feel like I don't know how to wear the mask.
Okay, touche. I think I'm just like
I feel like it's like the
linking-
opposite, right? It's just you're taking a word I use.
I'm taking
you know,
the
but-
word.
Yeah, but I honestly, I think a lot of people do that. Because they like take the one thing that they're like, oh, okay, I latch onto that. And I'm like,
100%.
that relates to me. And then
Yeah.
they start to believe, you know?
Yeah, again, this is like what we're doing right now is even like the bastardization of the science.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
100%.
We are not experts. This is literally like
No.
in both zodiacs. We're two like newbies
No,
doing
it takes
this.
like decades of study to be able to look at these charts and like divinate anything. But
Yeah.
what's your moon?
Libra.
Libra is the justice, like
Justice lady.
Yeah,
Yeah. Don't
okay.
like conflict. Don't like disharmony. I also feel like this one doesn't really apply because as we chatted about in our love matchmaking and monogamy episode, I definitely am a fighter. Definitely like not afraid of conflict. Definitely not afraid to have disharmony. I feel you're more like this actually.
Well, my inner state is Aries, which is highly emotional. So like maybe that just means that like I'm very reactive. So I need it to be more like chill.
So like how it presents is like a reaction to how you feel.
Yeah. No, I feel like my sun, moon, rising are pretty like spot on, but yours are more complex. I would need to do more digging into this to see what it means for you. Because on its surface, I'm not buying it either. I'm like, I don't see it.
I feel like I need the full consultation with Ruben's dad to like really get in there.
Oh
you know?
God, yeah, yeah. I'll send you, or maybe we'll like put it up on the screen for the video recordings. But I'll pop in my very complex looking chart.
Yeah, go to YouTube to check that out.
Yeah.
So let's do the Chinese one.
Tell me about your Chinese chart so I know how to interpret mine because I was so confused. So enlighten us.
I don't think I'm an expert. As I said, I didn't even know you could do a full chart until this morning. But yes, I always knew I was the rooster. But actually, 1993 specifically is the yin water rooster. What does that mean? The rooster is supposed to stand for all birds in the zodiac. So all birds being like the crane, the owl, the crow, the phoenix. And it's associated with the sun, which is in opposition to the moon. In Chinese mythology, the moon is associated with the rabbit.
Oh my God, space rabbit.
The moon rabbit is basically like a companion to the moon goddess. So it makes sense because the rabbit and the rooster are directly opposite on the chart, right? And And roosters are known as deep thinkers, often thought of as honest, bright, communicative, and warm-hearted. They have high self-worth and tend to be independent. However, they have difficulty relating with others and tend to assume they are always right. So, I mean, I knew that growing up, and I do relate to the descriptors. But I was like, obviously, not everyone born in my year is the same. So this is like pseudoscience for sure. Water roosters. I guess water was a new thing I learned. And the addition of water, it seems, basically makes the rooster more of a patient person. Like they can deal with adversity calmly. They are more sensitive and artistic and creative as well. So that appears to be like the influence of water. Because you could be, let's say you were a rooster like 12 years later or 12 years before. That could be a different element, and that would influence your roosterness in a slightly different way. So that's how the elements work with animals.
So it's by like cyclical calendar. It's not like your month or anything. It's like what?
Right now, we're still talking the 60-year cycle.
So even if you have someone in your family who's like 12 years apart from you, you're not actually the same symbol. You're not the same animal, really.
Yeah. This is really interesting for like generational horoscopes.
But then also,
You can actually have different zodiac animals based on this precise time that you were born, right? So my inner animal, which is like associated with birth month, is the pig. My true animal, which is associated based on my birthday, is the sheep. And then my secret animal, which is based on birth hour, is again the rooster.
Oh, so you're a real rooster.
I don't really understand these, to be frank, but basically, like every animal has characteristics, ones that you might assume based on our stereotypes of how that animal looks or how it might behave. So, like a snake is sneaky.
Okay, so then yin is the sign associated with the rooster. So as I mentioned, like 12 zodiac animals are known as 12 earthly branches. You can only have a yin or a yang.
For one of these.
So the yin is assigned basically to the rooster, and yin is associated with the more female, the divine feminine.
It's associated with passivity, dark energy, whereas yang is like masculinity, activity, heat, aggressiveness.
That's interesting that female energy is considered cold. You would think the opposite. But I see how like the aggression
Is like hot.
is hot. Like I get that. I do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
come on. Women are warm
Yeah.
compared to men.
I mean, yeah.
The Chinese believe like everybody has yin and yang both inside of them. It's not like only men have yang or only women have yin. It's more just like your cycles and like what is more present or ebbing or flowing over time.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess I feel like in the Western tradition, like if you're a Scorpio, you're a Scorpio, right? Like it's not like you have like multiple in you.
Yeah. It definitely is like influenced by what constellation was this planet in at this time. Like that's where you're getting that sign from. The influence of the other planets, like it's like, oh, you are a Scorpio in your 7th house. And that means that, like it's all influence. It gets very complicated quickly too.
Got it.
But yeah, to your point, it's not like things are like ebbing and flowing though. It's kind of like, this is just what you are. But like it's influenced in all of these different ways.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last thing is like
When it comes to Lunar New Year and it becomes a new year, it's like 2024 being the year of the dragon. In Chinese culture, that year takes on the characteristics of that animal. So the dragon year is going to be great for everyone, unless you really don't get along with dragons. And for me as a rooster, what do I have to look forward to? The phoenix, right, which I said the rooster is kind of in line with, like a bird. The phoenix and the dragon are considered to be super harmonious. They're actually like considered to be a married couple in Chinese culture. So I've got a good year ahead, sounds like. I get to look forward to bravery, confidence, and high ambitions to pursue a luxurious life.
I'm so happy you're in my life this year. So I'll piggyback off that. Mine was like way less positive. So I'm like the year of the dog. Well, I don't really identify with a dog if I'm being.
yeah. What is the dog?
Yeah. So the dog is intuitive, sincere, diligent, loyal, and highly trusted. I'm like, those would not
Makes
be like
sense.
the
Like
first.
dog and loyalty.
Yeah, I was like, those would not be the first things I would describe myself as. And then the dragon is like mysterious and like majestic. There's vitality. So I guess like the theme of the year for me is like the dragon is overshadowing the dog in every way and the dog is struggling.
Wow, okay.
So it was like, gave me like very actionable advice though. It was like Chinese
what did
Zodiac
it
kind of
say?
like woke over here, like really knows what's up. Like it was like, your health is going to be an issue for you, but like eat less sugar and spend more time outside. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, word. Okay.
Go off.
And then with like money was going to be a struggle. It was like, well, you could either be like real good and have some good investments, or it could be a struggle for you, but like, don't worry. And I was like, okay.
Don't worry.
It was like, just like invest more. And I was like, okay. Like giving me like really like sage practical advice based on this. Career is like, the dragon could provide a job opportunity for the dog. That's nice. But I love the justifications. They're so different than the Western ones that I'm used to. It's so much more like related to the personalities of the animals than I realized, which is why I found the origin story of the race so interesting and how it's like so moralized and like anthropomorphized. But it's like career. The dog belongs to earth element. Trees break the ground below. So the wood represents your career. The dragon contains wood. So that's bringing job opportunities to the dog. I'm like, oh, okay. So we're doing like symbology, like related to these like elements and then like what the animals are doing for each other. But yeah, basically the dragon just like breaking my dog shit all the time. And it's going to be a tough year for me ahead. But I'll consume less sugar and go outside more. So thanks, Chinese Zodiac, like with the sage advice.
Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah. I think we're both maybe a little too amateurish at reading these charts. Like, I know there's like people that you could hire to do this, but if you are curious at like doing your own, we'll include like the links of the resources we found to take it. That'll be posted, available to everyone on our Patreon.
We wish everyone a prosperous year of the dragon.
Yeah, and a happy Chinese New Year, happy Lunar New Year.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoy the pod, we would love for you to give us a follow and rate us on Apple Podcasts, which helps us get the word out and reach new listeners. Full transcripts and show notes are available on Patreon, where if you choose to become a patron, you'll also get access to bonus content, our monthly book club, and our eternal gratitude.
If you'd like to get in touch or suggest a topic for a future episode, email us at everythingiknowaboutpod@gmail.com or DM us across all socials at EikaPod, that's EIKA pod. Thanks for listening and see you next week.